Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy Boulanger. And man, this morning we have a lot of conversation to get into concerning our Baltimore Ravens. Granted, we are in that time of year. Uh-oh, I believe I got the wrong headphones hooked up. But we are in that time of year to where content is going to be very similar across the board. Everybody's going to be talking about very similar things. Like right now, we had the draft jumping off last week and actually coming to a conclusion a week from today. Well, excuse me, a week from today, last week. And so a lot of the content, man, has been about the Baltimore Ravens, who we picked, how they fit, what their impact will be on this team. And so we're going to continue that conversation. I've been kind of talking about the third day guys. Uh, and the reason why I've been talking about the third day guys is because I believe that's where most of your value in a draft is going to be. Your first, second, and maybe even your third round picks, they're going to be obvious, right? Their impact is going to be understood, right? If it's a first round pick, it's a guy who probably league wide has a first round grade. If it's I can get all my stuff pulled up. If it's a um, second round pick, right? Sometimes it's a guy who just fell out of the top round for whatever the reason. If it's a third round pick, you know, sometimes it's a guy who fell out of the second round. So league wide, man, all of your locked on people, right? A lot of those content creators, those guys are also talking about their draft picks. And then there's going to be some conversation that gets into some of the some of what you call post draft free agency, which is something you've already guys, you guys have already begun to hear around Baltimore Ravens Nation. Who's available, what we need, do we need to bring in some vets, so on and so forth. So, man, we haven't got there yet on the GM. We're still talking about our draft. And we're going to talk about two draft picks today, and then we're going to get into some commentary about who are draft winners and losers, who could be a draft casualty. And so, first up, man, let's get into our conversation. And thank you guys for checking in. Whether you catch it in the live or you catch it in the record, man, you're still appreciated. So let's do our um, again, still third day draft pick conversation, and let's get into our offensive lineman. And let's start with, I believe, first up is going to be Carson Vincent, offensive tackle. Okay. So it's not much to Carson Benson, right? As it pertains to a lot of tape out there. And that's primarily because he probably doesn't get a lot of buzz because of the division he played in. I believe he played in the SWAC um, down at Alabama A&M. But nevertheless, man, Carson Benson is a big offensive tackle, 6'7", 315 plus pounds, long arms, athletic, good feet, solid pass blocker, and also a solid run blocker. Now, why would we be excited in Baltimore about a fifth round offensive tackle? Well, for no other reason than depth, right? Because we know that if you pulled our roster or our depth chart prior to the draft, there was really nobody there at left tackle backup or right tackle backup. And so bringing in a talent like a Carson Benson, um, put somebody there, put somebody who absolutely played tackle at the college level, and he has all of the measurables, all of the skill set, the athleticism, all of those things to play tackle at the NFL level. So whether that's left tackle or whether that's right tackle, he still has the ability to perform. Now, what will he be year one? I don't know. Will he have an impact year one? I don't know. The hope is that he doesn't have an impact year one because that means if he had an impact, that means one of the starters has gone down, right? So hopefully, year number one, he has not had an impact. And so he can just learn and develop, get stronger, uh, learn the system, um, and in some aspects, man, just become a better player. So that way, when his time comes, he can step into whatever role that he has. Now, am I saying he's the eventual Ronnie Stanley replacement? No, ma'am, no, sir. Am I saying if they move Roger Rosengarten to left tackle at some point when Ronnie Stanley departs, that he's the backup, or excuse me, he's the replacement for Roger Rosengarten at right tackle? No, ma'am, no, sir. I'm not saying that. I'm just simply saying I think this guy has a place on this roster. And I think that if he has an opportunity in year one to just learn from the pros from last year, Roger Rosengarten, learn from the vet in Ronnie Stanley, learn how to take care of his body, get into a strength and conditioning program, get on the NFL meal plan, all of those things that help a young player develop. I believe that he could be a viable option on this Ravens team. I do not see him kicking inside to guard. I guess he could, but I think that he's better suited at the tackle position. But let's get to our other offensive lineman that we drafted, or another offensive lineman that we drafted in the seventh round, and that's Garrett Dellinger. Now, why would the seventh round pick have more tape out there, more film, more highlights out there? Simple. He played at LSU. He played in the SEC, which they are on TV basically every week somewhere. Now, Garrett Dellinger, I believe, is a better quality offensive lineman than a seventh round pick. I believe he could probably have gone late in the third or in the fourth. Now, why would I push him up that high if he went all the way in the seventh? Well, Garrett Dellinger only played 7 games this past season because his season was cut short with injury, and he did, in fact, have the tightrope surgery on his ankle. And so, one, you got that kind of surgery happening as an athlete that puts up some red flags. And two, you didn't complete the season because of that injury. And so, I think that's part of the reason why he fell. He's more of a draft risk than a draft value. But I think that because Garrett Dellinger did perform at the NFL Combine, I absolutely think that he could be a better player than a seventh round pick. You see, because performing in the combine means he was healthy. If I remember correctly, he had over 30 reps on the bench press. Strong dude, right? He ran a 5.140 or 5.140, which for a guy his size, 6'5", 325 pounds, that's moving. That's pretty good speed for a guy his size. He had a 9.5 foot broad jump. That's pretty good explosiveness for a guy his size. And I think he has 32-inch arms, something like that. So he has all of the measurables to be a solid offensive lineman, and he is a guard, right? Now, he does have position diversity where he has played tackle, right guard, and left guard, but he's primarily a left guard. I think he started over the last couple of seasons, 17 games at the left guard position. Again, strong guy, 6'5", 325, 32-inch arms, good athleticism. And if you watched his tape, if you looked him up, he has an ability to dominate in the trenches. He does have athleticism to get up to the second level. He's solid as a pulling guard as well. And so there's nothing this guy can't do along that offensive line. And so he has kind of a Patrick McCarry diversity. I'm not saying he's Patrick McCarry. I don't know what this kid will be, but he does have that kind of position diversity where he could play all along the offensive line. So I think that he does have a possibility of making this team none less than or nothing less than uh, being able to be on the Baltimore Ravens practice squad. And so let me speak to something that I thought about as I was looking at the draft. I was thinking that, hey, you know what? We need, the Baltimore Ravens need to be more aggressive. They need to be able to move up, package some of these picks together and move up into this draft and be able to get a better caliber of player. Take some of those six, move up and get a fourth round pick, or get another fourth, or take the fourth and some six and move up into the third. And do something that says there's a level of aggression. Nevertheless, we didn't. So what I believe is happening is that we at least drafted part of our practice squad, right? When you can capture a player in the draft and he may not make the team, you've thought enough about him to at least see him make the practice squad. Also, I tell you something. Um, I believe this draft was overwhelming for the Baltimore Ravens because in recent days, you definitely heard EDC come out and say, "Hey, you know what? We needed a break. That's part of the reason why we moved back." So I don't, I can't excuse that. I can't really excuse that type of behavior in the draft, right? Because that could cost you a player, that could cost you positioning, that could cost you some value where you have to move back because you're not ready to pick. Here's the truth, man. It's a long go from pick 91 to when they picked Teddy Buchanan in that fourth round. That's basically 32 plus picks because of the compensatory picks that were involved. And then from 129, I think, to 136, that's still, I think it's 5 minutes on day three you have to pick. So that's basically 30, 35 to 45 minutes, depending on how quick a team puts their draft pick in. So if you can't figure out who you need to pick, man, that's a problem, right? I may be being too critical, but I'm going to say what I'm going to say. You guys know that's how I do. I'm not trying to be critical of EDC. I'm just saying for me, that's unacceptable to be a GM for 8 drafts. I think on his own, let's see, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 24, and 25 to be a GM for the last 7 seasons and then have been a part of the drafting process under Ozzy. It's not, that's not reasonable to think that you need a break in the middle of the draft. So you give up the value of a fourth round pick to take a fifth round pick. So, but that's my only criticism of the draft. No matter who we drafted, I think that we still walked away with some good value. I think a lot of our guys have the potential to make this team. And I think a lot of them will, right? And so we're going to get into that. We're going to focus on our fourth day draft picks. Actually, we're going to focus on all of them, uh, um, from one down through seven. but the first 3 rounds I do not have imagery for, so we're just going to talk about them. And so when you think about the draft, right? We started off the draft with a defensive player, safety Malachi Starks, and we understand that that had probably been the pick probably after 22 was in, right? When you start seeing it go from 22 to 23, Malachi Starks is still on the board. The Ravens kind of knew that that's who they were taking, and he probably was one of their top picks anyway, from what we understand. And so when you think Malachi Starks, okay, let's talk about winners and losers. From him selected, who won? Well, the first winner, I believe, is Zachary Orr, right? I think Orr is a winner because he has another chess piece. Uh, Malachi Starks and his ability to move all around the field. He can cover wide receivers. He has good range. He has good speed. He has good athleticism. And so to have a guy who's a step above or a notch above and a Darius Washington gives you a lot of options, I might say. And so I think Zachary Orr is the first winner. I think another winner with the Malachi Starks pick would be Kyle Hamilton, right? Because now Kyle Hamilton can do more of what people call Kyle Hamilton things, whether he goes down into the box or he covers a tight end or he's blitzing, whatever that's going to look like for Kyle Hamilton, he's now freed up. Now, let me be clear. I think Malachi Starks is going to be good in a Baltimore Ravens uniform, but I don't want to kind of put too much pressure on him too early. I want to see him develop kind of like Kyle Hamilton did. Kyle Hamilton took about the first 6 or 7 games, and people were down on Kyle Hamilton saying he was drafted too early. You guys remember the commentary in Ravens Nation? You guys know what you were saying about Kyle Hamilton. He was drafted too early. He's not that good. I said after his first season, he was one of the best safeties in the league. Somebody said, "Man, your hot take is garbage. You don't know what you're talking about." Well, here we are, basically 3 seasons later, and he is absolutely that one of the best safeties in the league, and in some aspects, the best safety. Nevertheless, so Cal Hamilton's a winner, right? I think that when you look at who could be the losers, I think one of the first losers is Bo Braid. If they're going to play Malachi Starks at the free safety position, which I think is the smart move, the smartest move to play him predominantly as a free safety, I think Bo Braid is one of the biggest losers, right? You know, Bo Braid was a UDFA from last season, and he didn't get on the field that much at all. I don't remember a play. Let me grab my water. I don't remember a play that Bo Braid played last season of any type of significance. So maybe he played, maybe he didn't. Nevertheless, I think he's the first loser because typically last guy in, first guy out, right? It works that way in the business world. It works that way in employment. Last one in, first one out. And so, of all the safeties, Bo Braid was the um, last guy in. And so, if you're trying to make room for Malachi Starks, right, Bo Braid is out. I think the next loser is Ardarius Washington, and I don't think the drafting of Malachi Starks is going to make Darius Washington a backup necessarily, but I do think it'll cut into his minutes. I do think you're going to see a three safety grouping for sure, just like we saw last year. So Darius Washington still has a place. He still has some viability on this defense, and I don't think it automatically means he's not going to be on the team next year. I've heard some commentary that Darius Washington, is kind of contentious based on his contract situation, so on and so forth. But I think that it doesn't automatically mean he's gone, right? Matter of fact, that let me lean into this a little bit more. I think that another winner is going to be the Baltimore Ravens because you're going to be more likely to be able to sign a Darius Washington if you want to retain his services for the next 2 or 3 seasons. You're more likely to sign him now than before. Here's why: they put that tender on him, right? But it was the type of tender that if somebody signed him, it would not cost them any draft compensation, right? And nobody came to get a Darius Washington. Right. Even right now, there are some safeties that are out there that are pretty good caliber players that are still available, which kind of leans into there's a saturation for safeties. So if there's a saturation now in that safety market, there will certainly be a saturation next year in the safety market as you have a whole nother corpse of safeties that are going to be entering the league next season. So I think that lowers Darius Washington's value. First off, you got the first round pick Malachi Starr in house. Second, nobody came to get you, even though it wouldn't cost them nothing but a contract. So I think that kind of positions the Ravens to sign Darius Washington if they choose to. Well, why would they even keep Darius Washington? Well, solid backup, right? He could definitely be that third safety in the three-man grouping, but he could also be the replacement for Marlon Humphrey if Marlon Humphrey happens to depart in the 2026 offseason. So I think it's more likely now that they could sign him than even before. All right. Let's move to Mike Green. Second round pick, pick 59. Now, I think the ultimate winner again is going to be Zachary Orr. You have another piece uh, to add to your repertoire, right? To add to the arsenal. And if Mike Green shows anything of what we saw from him last year in college, playing at Marshall, 17 sacks, just continual pressure on the quarterback. Zachary Orr is absolutely a winner, right? I think another winner with the Mike Green is going to be guys like Odafe, guys like Tavius Robinson, guys like Calvin Noy, guys like Adisa Isaac. Well, let me tell you why Odafe Owe would be a winner, and he's going to be a loser here in a second. Odafe Owe is going to be a winner because nobody really expects him to be the franchise level edge rusher at this point. So he can just relax into his role. Yeah, he is in a contract year, but he's been in a contract year for last season, and he's in a contract year this season. But nobody's going to be expecting him to kind of elevate into that franchise level edge rusher. And if he does, I don't think he stays on the team anyway. I think he's gone either way, right? Whether he takes it up another level or he stays at the same level, I think he's gone either way. But he's a winner because the expectations will begin to shift from him to Mike Green. And when you don't play with fear of losing your job, fear of meeting the fan base's expectations, so on and so forth, it relieves a level of pressure. Calvin Noy is a winner. He doesn't have to be the 12 sack guy again. Can he be? Yes. Will we love him to be? Yes. But it relieves a little bit of that pressure because you have a guy who's gonna have some expectations to be able to be disruptive and explosive off the edge. Take some pressure off of Disa Isaac. How? Well, coming in sure there was some expectations, but nobody knew what he was going to be, and it comes out to be that he became nothing because he stayed injured. I'm not saying he's nothing as a person. I'm not saying he's nothing as a player. I'm talking about his contribution last season was zero. And so I think it still takes some pressure off of him. So now he can just settle into whatever role he's going to have, learn, grow, develop, and produce. Tavius Robinson, I think it's going to make him a better edge rusher because if Mike Green's on the field and he starts being disruptive and gets some attention, that's going to take less attention off of Tavius Robinson. So I think all of the edge rushers are winners except for, right? Biggest loser is David Ajabo. The reason why David Ajabo is a loser is because I don't think the Baltimore Ravens keep six edge rushers. I think Odafe always a lock unless some kind of crazy trade happens between now and start of the season. Calvin Noy is a lock. Tavius Robinson is a lock. Adisa Isaac is a lock just based on his draft value last year. And I'm missing somebody. Mike Green is a lock. So David Ajabo would make the sixth edge rusher. Well, David Ajabo has literally showed us nothing in his 3 seasons. He's in a contract year, but with all of the excitement, all of the buzz around Mike Green, barring any type of injury, David Ajabo is going to be on the sideline watching. He's not going to really be able to get on the field to show what he can do. And here's the truth, man. I did hear EDC mention David Ajabo and them being excited about their edge rushing group, but David Ajabo was benched basically. He was inactive several games last season. that doesn't show a level of progress. That shows a level of regression. So I think he is um, could be one of the first draft casualties. I think that it could. I think the Mike Green draft could cost David Ajabo his job, just like I think that the Malachi Starks draft will cost Bo Braid his job. So two guys in, two guys out. Let's jump down to Emory Jones. Now, in truth, I don't know who the biggest winner is except for depth, right? The offensive line coach having some depth that he can take a look at. I think the winner is the Ravens as a whole offensively because it does create a level of competition. Do not know where Emory Jones will play, right? I do know he will be a backup to the right tackle or the left tackle, but I don't know if he'll, compete for a starting position. I don't know if he'll slot inside and go to left guard in his first season. But I think with a third round pick from a guy who played in high caliber football down at LSU, I do think he will have an opportunity to get on the field in year one. And so I just think the whole offense is a winner as it pertains to having some depth. But I think one of the first losers could be a guy like a Ben Cleveland. See, when you have one guy come in, somebody from last year may be out of a job. Yeah, Patrick McCurry left and Jones left, but we drafted three offensive linemen. And now, of course, the Dellinger we talked about earlier, he may not make it, but Emory Jones is definitely going to be on this roster. And there's already four starters set. Voorhees, I think, is a roster lock. So that would give you five starters if it is Voorhees. Emory Jones will make a sixth offensive lineman, right? Our fifth round pick is going to make a seventh offensive lineman. I don't think they keep but nine. I think there's still an opportunity to bring in a veteran offensive lineman. Will Ben Cleveland be suspended because of his offseason situation? I don't know. So I do think Emory Jones may uproot Ben Cleveland, depending on what the Baltimore Ravens do in free agency post draft. So I think Ben Cleveland may be one of the first losers. All right. Let's keep moving. Let's go to the fourth round pick, who I have a slot for. Let me see if I can get this guy pulled up because I'm super excited about the day three dudes, right? And so our fourth round pick is Teddy Buchanan, right? And no matter what we think about him, no matter what we knew about him, when you watch his tape, when you watch his impact, and you will see commentary on him coming out probably this evening or maybe tomorrow. But Teddy Buchanan, another winner is going to be Zach Orr. Same reasons as before for Mike Green and Malachi Starks. You're going to add competition. You're going to add depth, right? You're going to add a guy who's pretty athletic, fast. He's a run and hit type of guy, and he's good in pass coverage. And so, and that's something we need, right? So I think he's a winner. Zach Orr. I think another winner is going to be a Roquan Smith, right? Because it's going to create competition along beside him. And anytime there's competition, there's always an opportunity for somebody to get better. So you want Trenton Simpson to get better going into his third season. You want him to have a level of fear and concern that his job may not be secure. And so I think Roquan Smith is a winner. I think another uh, winner could be um, l- the guy they brought in free agency. I can't remember how you pronounce his name, but he can just do his job as a special teamers. Um, I think the talent between Buchanan and the free agent pickup, I think is already visible. I think it's already evident, and so he can just go do his thing, special teams, and just kind of fill in spot duty as Buchanan creates competition for that starting position. I do think he has a chance to start for the Baltimore Ravens. First loser, I think it's going to be Trent Simpson. I think the drafting of Buchanan spells the end eventually for Trent Simpson. Does that mean he's cut this year? No. Does that mean he doesn't play out his fourth season? No. But I think it does spell the eventual end. If Buchanan is what he is, a good coverage guy, a good tackler, a good blitzer, all those kind of things, and he can show that immediately, the attention is going to leave Trenton Simpson and is going to be on Buchanan, and there's going to be a desire to get him on the field more often. And I think it could spell the end for Trenton Simpson. So he is uh, the loser in the drafting of Buchanan. And of course, that's barring any type of injury. All right, let's look at our next draft pick. In this fifth round pick, um, Carson Benson, right? And it's a guy we just talked about a little bit ago. Um, I think a winner, of course, is the whole offense, specifically the offensive line, just having depth and just being able to create some good competition. I do not think he slots inside as a guard. I don't even think that's an option because you have to have somebody who can back up Ronnie and also Roger. And so I think that is going to be Benson. Of course, he has all the measurables: 6'7", 315 plus pounds, athleticism, long arms, although his competition level at Alabama A&M may not be what it was or what it is at the SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12, all those kind of conferences, he still showed up and he still played well against who he played against. And I think they did play against like one of the SEC teams, and he did perform well in that game as well. And so I think the whole offense is a winner. When you think about losers, again, Ben Cleveland, right? He's the Vincent's the second offensive lineman in the door, um, and he would make the seventh offensive lineman even before we start talking about Ben Cleveland, Sumac, Bullock, so on and so forth. And so I think Ben Cleveland may be a draft casualty. All right, let's go to all right. Now we're going to go to the sixth round. And uh, this is Bilal Coney. Uh, and big corner, we talked about him on yesterday's video. Big corner, long, athletic, fast, good feet, um, good route recognition, can play press man. Also, he can play end zone. And he's kind of a right place, right time type of corner. And I think, of course, the winner, of course, is Zach Orr because it adds depth, somebody he can look to. Um, you know, if something happens with the starters, I think Chuck Pagano is a winner. It gives him another DB to develop and help mature and help grow. Um, and so I think those are the winners. When it comes to players, I think Awuzie is a winner, right? Because it gives him the potential to have somebody to rotate with. Same thing for Nate Wiggins. It gives him somebody that he could potentially rotate with. I think when it comes to losers, I think JAD, Jalen Armour Davis, may be the biggest loser, right? The Baltimore Ravens have been waiting on Jalen Armour Davis to do something significant for 3 seasons. He has not, just simply because of injury. Is Jalen Armour Davis talented? Yes. Can he ball? Probably so. We just have not been able to see it. And so when you draft a guy who's a little bigger, faster, and may have better ball skills than JAD, depends on who you're asking, I think it does put him at risk of being out, right? I think he's the only loser I can think of right now because we did have um, a lack of depth at corner, and so I think that JAD could be out. Let's go to our next pick, and this next pick, fifth round pick, um, is LeJontay Wester. A lot of excitement around this kid. This dude right here, he has freaky speed, right? Freaky quickness. And the benefit is he's not 5'8", 5'9". He's actually 5'11". Now he does have a light frame. I think it's like 167, so let's just call him 170. But the goal is going to be to get this kid on the field, punt return, kick return, and maybe even onto the field for some trick plays, end arounds, wide receiver screens, short passes. Excuse me, because this dude can do some damage with the ball in his hand. And I think it would be doing Lamar Jackson a disservice. It will be doing, say, Flowers a disservice. I'll talk about that in a minute, by not getting this kid on the field. I think one of the first winners, of course, is the special teams coach. Don't know who that is, so let's just call him John Harbaugh. Getting a guy who's a legitimate uh, punt return, kick return threat, and you didn't have to jump through any hoops. You didn't have to, sign anybody extraordinary to get him, like you did last year with what's that dude's name? Deontay Hardy? Was that his name? I don't know. Anyway, the guy that we signed last year, but he had some things going on personally. And so being able to get a true threat is beneficial. Lamar Jackson is a beneficiary of the Western draft pick. And I think that Zay is a beneficiary. Well, how could Zay be a beneficiary? Because you can stop trying to do the end arounds with Zay. You don't want to do end arounds and things like that with your number one wide receiver. I don't care how quick Zay is. I don't care about his speed. You want your number one wide receiver to be out in route patterns, not doing trick plays, things of that nature. Let the young guy, LeJounte Wester, do those things. Even if he comes on the field and he's a decoy, you fake the ball to him, you fake a handoff to him or whatever. Getting him on the field and letting him get used to the NFL game is only going to benefit him, and it's also going to benefit the Baltimore Ravens down the road. Who's a loser? Well, I think that nobody right off, because I think that sixth wide receiver position was empty. But I think that a guy like a Talon Wallace could be a loser, because I think that at the end of next season, this dude creeps up into Talon Wallace's spot, right? Because I do think the Baltimore Ravens are still going to be in search of that big bodied number one type wide receiver, especially as contracts come due. It's time for guys to get paid. You're going to need more and more young, cheap talent on this roster. So I think Talon Wallace could be the odd man out, not this season, but next season. Okay. Let's get into our next pick, and that's gonna be kicker. Um, wait a minute. Let me change something. That's gonna be Aeneas Peoples, right? Not a kicker, but defensive tackle. Everybody wins from this kid, right? Zach Orr. Um, the edge rushing department wins, especially if this guy can get on the field and get pressure and be disruptive in the middle. Edge rushers win, because you're causing havoc in a part of the offensive line that you don't want havoc caused in. You do not want pressure and disruption between the guard, the center, and the guard. And that's what this guy can do, right? And so my hope is that be able to get him on the field and he'll be able to do his thing. Zach Orr is a beneficiary, linebackers benefit, edge rushers benefit, and the other guys in that defensive tackle room benefit from the drafting of Aeneas Peoples. Now, losers. I think there's only one loser in this, and I think that could be Broderick Washington. They don't have the similar game, they don't have much similarity in their game. But Broderick Washington has not done much since he got his paycheck, right? Since he got his new contract. And so I think the drafting of Aeneas Peoples will spell the eventual end for Broderick Washington. Again, not this season, but at the end of this season, I think it'll be time for a departure. And so let's keep moving. All right. So when we get to this next pick, let me take this down over here. Okay. So now when we get to this next pick, you got Garrett Dellinger. And I missed putting Tyler Loop on her. So let me hit Tyler Loop and then I'll talk about Garrett Dellinger. Um, Tyler Loop, kicker out of Arizona State, if I'm remembering correctly. Um, I think the special teams department win. the whole special teams department because you get new life, right? The Baltimore Ravens have needed an infusion on special teams because we have been, in some aspects, dreadful, right? When it comes to the kicking department, we have been dreadful. Justin Tucker has had a couple of down years, especially this past season, and then with all of the off-field stuff that has happened after the season ended, or just as the season ended, I'm not sure of. Uh, Tucker's viability to stay on the Baltimore Ravens roster. And so drafting Tyler Loop is a benefit to the special teams department. And I think, of course, the obvious loser is going to be Justin Tucker because it erases our desperation to have a kicker if Justin Tucker is eventually going to be suspended. And he's going to be suspended. Doesn't matter what happened in these cases. And let me be clear. I don't mean, okay, it doesn't matter about the cases. I'm saying as it pertains to whether Justin Tucker gets found liable for some things or he doesn't, he's still going to be suspended by the league for conduct detrimental, right? And so I think it's going to have to be an eventual replacement anyway. So I think Tyler Loop can do that. Now, let me be clear. I think the Baltimore Ravens lost in some aspects with this draft pick. Not because he's too high, not because he's not a quality kicker, but I think they drafted the wrong guy. There's a guy named, I want to say his name is Fitzgerald, kicker out of Florida State. He's actually a better kicker than Tyler Loop, and he actually got signed in the UDFA market. He this past season he was 5 for 5 beyond 50 yards. He was 13 for 13, I believe, on extra points, and he just has better numbers all around. And some of those kicks from 50 would have been good from 60. So I actually think the Baltimore Ravens drafted the wrong kicker. But nevertheless, we got who we got. He's a part of the Ravens. Welcome to the club. And we'll see what he does when he gets on the field. But of course, again, I think the obvious loser is Tucker because it makes it easier to move on from him. And last but not least is Garrett Dellinger, uh, guard out of LSU. Okay. The benefit is that it creates competition. This guy is a 3-year starter for LSU, big time football school, um, super competitive, strong, has a level of athleticism, as I mentioned earlier. So I think the whole offensive line benefits, the offense benefits from just being able to create competition. And I say keep an eye on this dude. I think he's going to be impressive in some aspects in this offseason, and he's going to push somebody who's supposed to be ahead of him. He's going to push them to get better. I think again the obvious loser is going to be Ben Cleveland. I think Ben Cleveland or Sumac could be one of the guys gone because again this guy Garrett Dellinger can play every position along the offensive line. Now, you don't really want him to. You actually want everybody to kind of play their own position, hold their own. But Dellinger does have that position diversity. All right. So now, as a whole, man, I think the Baltimore Ravens draft went very, very well. Right. What I have liked, again, like I said before, some aggression. Yeah, sure I would. What I would like for them to have done make some different picks. Sure I would. But everybody that we picked, believe it or not. Oh, I missed a guy. I sure did. I'll talk about him in a second. I don't think I have a slide for him, but I'll get him in a minute. But I think everybody who was picked had a higher value than where they were drafted. So let me grab Longer Bean, right? Um, cornerback out of Rutgers, I believe it is. Did a video on him yesterday. Sorry to leave him out, but quick, good in coverage, um, good ball skills. And I did not think he would make the team. I think that's why I didn't create a slide for him. But after watching his film, after learning more about him, I do think he has a chance to make this team. Well, why? Well, we know that we needed some depth at corner. He does provide depth. He's a quality cornerback coming out of college, and of course, like I said just a few minutes ago, him and Coney they were actually rated higher than actually where they were drafted. And so I think all of our draft picks, let me say this clearly, I think all of them have the potential to be on this team. But I think what's going to happen is some of our draft picks are going to lose the possibility to be on the team simply because of the post draft free agency, which I think will kick off this coming week. I don't know when the Baltimore Ravens will sign somebody, but I know that there's a lot of talent still left out there. I don't know if we'll even do a video talking about the talent. Matter of fact, let's just hit it right here. I know Zadarius Smith is still out there, but with a full edge rush room, there is somebody that immediately would have to go. And when I say immediate, I don't mean that same day that we sign him. If we sign him, I just simply mean somebody would definitely have to go only because the Baltimore Ravens are not keeping 7 edge rushers. I know we need an interior defensive lineman. I don't have any off the top of my head because I have not looked up best players available lately. Um, I know that at the offensive line position, there's a guy like Brandon Sheriff who's available. I think Jedrick Will Wells or Willis maybe. He played for the Cleveland Browns last year. Maybe he played for the Bengals. Doesn't matter. You guys know who I'm talking about. First name is Jedrick. I think he's still available. Um, Dalton Reisner is still available. So there are some offensive line guard positions specifically who are still available, viable options. Let's see who else. We don't really need anything at wide receiver. We don't need anything at tight end. We don't need anything at running back. Did hear a little bit of talk, a little bit of chatter that hey, should the Baltimore Ravens try and sign Nick Chubb? I wouldn't be opposed to it, but somebody has to go, right? They're not keeping Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell, and Patrick Ricard. So uh, would it be kind of like a fantasy backfield? Sure would, but I'm not sure. I know that there was some talk that Nick Chubb goes back to Cleveland, but I don't know what that looks like. I think they want him. He wants to go. I think they have to just get the money together. Um, but we really don't need anything in the backfield unless Derrick Henry does not get a new deal and he holds out, right? And we'll talk about Derrick Henry on Monday, unless a deal gets signed between now and then. Um, we'll talk about Derrick Henry more and what and that situation specifically. Let's get into defense. Of course, like I said, we need something possibly at interior defensive line. We're probably pretty decent at edge. Again, I wouldn't be opposed to a veteran edge rusher like Darius Smith. CJ Mosley was out there. Don't know if he still is, but he would be a welcome sight to partner with Roquan Smith in the middle. And then you have uh, Buchanan backing those guys up, learning from some good vets. And then the guy who was signed in free agency at linebacker. We don't need much at safety. Could they bring in another vet? Maybe. A reasoning for that at this point. Kyle Hamilton's a vet or Darius Washington's a vet. And so I don't see a point. And then I think there may be a possibility that they do bring in a veteran corner. There are some guys out there. Asante Samuel Jr. is still out there. Um, Stephon Gilmore was still out there at one point. Again, I have not checked that list, but I do think they will pick up a couple of dudes that may make these draft picks vulnerable at certain positions. But listen, that's what I have for you guys today. We're going to talk about contract situations on Monday. Uh, just some updates for the GM. We will be going live. I'm trying to get my summer schedule together as life is changing for me. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays will be live at 7 a.m. Yes, I said it. 7 a.m. Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. We're going live early so we can get out of the way of the other more prominent podcasters and content creators. Um, because there's not going to be a lot of recording being done only because all the information is going to be, fluid. I don't think there's going to be a lot of long-term stories coming out. I think the roster is kind of what it is at this point. I think there'll be a couple of signings. There'll be some breaking news. And so what we'll do Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays is just talk about the latest news in Ravens Nation, the latest news in the AFC North, and the latest news in the AFC, and anything major that happens around the league. That'll be Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Got something special coming up for Thursday evenings. And then Fridays we'll take off. And then Saturdays we'll be live just like we always are. Saturdays live will be more of a conversation piece. My goal is to get either some call in stuff happening or either get you guys to join the conversation virtually. So listen, man, that's what I got for you guys. I appreciate it. Do me a favor. If you have not hit the like button, hit the like button. If you hear this long, and if you have never subscribed, please hit the subscribe. I'm out.